The year 260 CE, on a plain near the city of Edessa in northern Mesopotamia, a man kneels. He wears a purple robe, the emblem of a power that until yesterday made the entire Mediterranean world tremble.
But today, he stretches out his hands toward a tall rider on horseback who looks down at him. That rider is the Sasanian King of Kings, Shapur I. And the kneeling man is none other than Valerian, Emperor of Rome.
This is the only time in the entire history of the Roman Empire that a Roman emperor was captured alive by an enemy on the battlefield.
He was not killed, did not flee, did not take his own life. He was taken prisoner. And what followed became one of the most humiliating accounts of power's fragility in the ancient world. A story the ancient Iranians carved into stone so that it would endure for thousands of years. Today, we will tell this story from the beginning, from the crisis that brought Rome to its knees, to the man who became a stepping stool in the palace of Ctesiphon. To understand the depth of this catastrophe, we must go back to 3rd century Rome, an era historians would later call the crisis of the 3rd century. After the death of Emperor Severus Alexander in 235 CE, Rome entered a period of chaos that lasted nearly 50 years. During this half-century, more than 20 men claimed the imperial throne. Most were military commanders, raised to power by their own soldiers, only to be killed by those same soldiers within months or even weeks.
The state treasury was empty. The value of Roman currency had collapsed sharply. Plague was spreading across the empire, and the frontiers were under pressure from every direction. From the north, Germanic tribes, and from the east, a fresh and far more dangerous power than any before it, the newly risen Sasanian Empire.
The Sasanians had come to power in 224 CE, when Ardashir I defeated the last Parthian king and seized the Iranian throne. Unlike the Parthians, who had a relatively decentralized, feudal-style military structure, the Sasanians built a centralized, religious, and militarized state that, by reviving the legacy of the Achaemenids, also asserted a claim to reclaim territories lost in the West. To the Sasanians, Roman Syria, and even Anatolia were part of Iran's historical legacy, land that had to be won back. Ardashir began this pressure, but it was his son, Shapur I, who turned this vision into bloody reality. Shapur I, who came to power around 240 CE, was a ruthless commander, a skilled organizer, and a strategist who understood well that Rome was weak. He decided to turn that weakness to his advantage. During his reign, Shapur struck deep into Roman territory in the east 3 times. In the first campaign, against Emperor Gordian III, Sasanian forces triumphed in a battle near Mysicae, and Gordian, according to one account, died in that very campaign. His successor, Philip the Arab, was forced to accept a humiliating peace to end the war and pay the Sasanians a huge sum as tribute, an event that itself testified to Iran's growing dominance. In his second major campaign, Likely around 252–253 CE, the Sasanian army captured and plundered the great city of Antioch, one of the largest and wealthiest cities of the Roman East, a blow that echoed across the entire empire.
Antioch was the empire's third largest city, and its fall showed that no corner of the Roman East was safe any longer. Rome, in such a state of crisis, needed leadership capable of stemming this tide. That leader was Valerian.
Publius Licinius Valerianus, later known as Valerian, came to power in 253 CE at a relatively advanced age, close to 60. He came from an aristocratic family with a long senatorial pedigree, had considerable military and administrative experience, and unlike so many of the short-lived emperors of that era, appeared to be a stable and capable ruler.
Immediately upon taking power, Valerian made his son Gallienus co-ruler, and the two divided responsibilities between them. Gallienus took charge of the western half of the empire, including confronting the Germanic tribes, while Valerian himself headed east to deal with the growing Sasanian threat.
But the situation Valerian faced was far more complex than a simple war. A widespread plague, later known as the Plague of Cyprian, was devastating Roman troops throughout the East. Ancient sources, including the historian Zosimus, point to a sharp decline in the Roman army's combat strength because of this disease. Valerian, with an army that was depleted, discontented, and sick, would have to stand against one of the most capable kings in Iranian history. Even so, Valerian achieved some early success. He managed to retake Antioch and restore a degree of order in the eastern provinces, but these successes were temporary. In 260 CE, Valerian decided to march with a large army, which some ancient sources, perhaps with exaggeration, put at as many as 70,000 men toward Edessa to relieve the city, which was under siege by Shapur's forces.
What happened at Edessa would forever change his fate, and perhaps the image of Rome as an invincible power. The precise details of the Battle of Edessa remain a matter of debate among historians, owing to the scarcity of contemporary Roman sources and the lack of agreement among the accounts that do survive.
But the broad outline of the story can be reconstructed from various sources, including the famous inscription of Shapur on the wall of the Kaaba-e Zartasht at Naqsh-e Rustam, and the writings of historians such as Zosimus and Lactantius.
According to the prevailing account, Valerian's army clashed with Shapur's forces near Edessa and suffered a crushing defeat. Some sources note that at the same time as the battle, plague was still spreading through the Roman ranks, severely weakening the army's combat capacity.
Other accounts, including the writings of the Roman Greek historian Peter the Patrician, tell a different and even more humiliating story: that Valerian was not defeated on the battlefield at all, but tricked. According to this version, Valerian went to meet Shapur to negotiate peace, but the meeting was a trap. As soon as he and his companions drew near, Sasanian forces ambushed and captured them.
Whichever account is closer to the truth, the outcome was the same. The Roman emperor, along with a large number of senior officers, court officials, and the survivors of his army,
fell into the hands of the Sasanian King of Kings.
This was the only event in the entire history of the Roman Empire in which an emperor was captured alive in the midst of war by an enemy, something that never happened before or after.
News of Valerian's capture spread through the Roman world like an earthquake. But what followed was a wound deeper than the military defeat itself.
Ancient sources, chiefly the Christian writer Lactantius, in his work on the deaths of the persecutors, offer an account of Valerian's fate in captivity that remained lodged in the West's historical memory for centuries. According to this account, Shapur regarded the captured Valerian not as a defeated king to be treated according to his rank, but as a living symbol of his own triumph. The story goes that whenever Shapur wished to mount his horse, he used Valerian as a footstool. The Roman emperor had to bend down so that the Persian King of Kings could place his foot on his back and step up into the saddle. This image, repeatedly seized upon by later historians and artists for centuries, became the ultimate symbol of Rome's humiliation. It should be stressed that this particular account comes chiefly from later Roman and Christian sources, writers who often had their own agendas.
Lactantius, for instance, aimed to show that emperors who had persecuted Christians, and Valerian was one, having issued edicts against them, met a terrible end. A kind of divine justice runs through his narrative. For this reason, many modern historians treat this specific detail, especially the story of the human footstool, with caution, regarding it more as a symbolic or even somewhat exaggerated tale than as a documented report.
But what is beyond doubt, and what is carved in stone, is the image that Shapur himself chose to leave behind of this victory forever.
At Naqsh-e Rustam, near Persepolis, and also at Naqsh-e Rustam, Sasanian-era rock reliefs survive that depict Shapur I's victory over the Roman emperors. In these carvings, Shapur is shown mounted on horseback, while Philip the Arab kneels before him, begging for peace. And at the same time, Valerian, his hands apparently seized by Shapur, or extended in a gesture of surrender, stands or kneels beside him.
These reliefs, unlike literary accounts that may have been shaped by exaggeration or the propagandistic aims of their authors, are direct evidence contemporary with the event itself. Their creation was ordered by Shapur himself. Alongside these reliefs, a trilingual inscription in Pahlavi, Parthian, and Greek was also carved, known as the Res Gestae Divi Saporis, or in short, SKZ. In this inscription, Shapur proudly describes his victories over Rome, including the capture of Valerian, whom he calls Caesar, taken prisoner along with the remnants of his army. This inscription is a unique document. Unlike so many events of ancient history that have come down to us from only one side, usually the Roman and Western side, this is one of the rare cases where we also have the direct account of the victorious side, Sasanian Iran. An account that records with full pride the defeat of an empire that had believed itself eternal.
But what was Valerian's ultimate fate? Here, too, accounts diverge. Some sources, particularly later and more embellished Roman versions, claim that Valerian remained in captivity until the end of his life, and that, after his death, his skin was flayed, dyed red, and put on display in an Iranian temple as a trophy of victory. This account, though it became deeply lodged in the Western popular imagination, is regarded with serious skepticism by many modern historians, since no such details appear in sources closer to the actual event. It appears to belong to a legendary account that grew more exaggerated over the following centuries. What can be said with greater confidence is that Valerian never returned to Rome and died in Shapur's captivity, an event that, regardless of the precise details of his death, was in itself an unprecedented catastrophe for the Roman Empire. Never before him, and never after him, did the Roman Empire witness such a fate befall its leader.
The defeat and capture of Valerian plunged Rome into one of the darkest chapters of its history. With the emperor gone and central authority in the East collapsing, conditions ripened for the rise of local powers. It was in this very setting that the city-state of Palmyra, under the leadership of Odenathus, and later his wife, the legendary Queen Zenobia, rose to become an independent power in the East, a power that, for a time, even managed to resist Shapur's later advances and recover some of the prestige Rome had lost in the region.
Meanwhile, Gallienus, Valerian's son, now sole emperor, was consumed by enormous challenges in the West and had no real means of exacting direct revenge on Shapur. The image of Rome's invincibility, an image that had underpinned this empire's authority over its neighbors for centuries, was cracked forever.
Yet perhaps the deepest consequence of this event was a symbolic one. For the first time in history, the ancient world saw that even a Roman emperor could be defeated, captured, and made to kneel before another king. This image, which the Iranians proudly carved into stone, remained for generations as a reminder that no power, however great, is eternal or invincible.
The story of Valerian and Shapur is more than a military event. It is a narrative about pride, crisis, and the fragility of power. An empire that saw itself as the center of the world was brought to its knees by a kingdom only a few decades old. And Shapur I, with great shrewdness, ensured this victory was recorded not only on the battlefield, but forever, carved into the stones of Naqsh-e Rustam, a place where, even now, nearly 17 centuries later, one can still stand and see that very scene. Perhaps the greatest lesson this story offers is that history is not always written by the victors alone. Sometimes the stones themselves become the storytellers. If you enjoyed this video, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you'd like future episodes on the fate of Palmyra and Queen Zenobia, or other great battles between Rome and the Sasanians, be sure to let us know.